Let's not fake it. You said this year would be different. Stronger boundaries, fewer excuses, real progress. But here you are again, watching another video, feeling behind and calling it a slow start. Let me stop you right now. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you keep repeating 5 patterns that make change impossible. They're not obvious. They don't scream, but they're there. In the way you quit, delay, doubt, and disguise collapse as self-care. This video doesn't come with fluff. No, stay positive. No, you got this. This is the one that holds up a mirror and says, here's why you broke your own promise, and why you'll keep doing it unless you change. Now, every second of this video reveals a mental trap that's keeping you locked in the same loop. And if you miss even one, you'll reset again, just like last year. Only this time it'll hurt more, because you knew better. This isn't just another New Year reset. This is your final warning before 2025 becomes another highlight reel of good intentions and private regret. So if you're really ready, let's begin. Chapter 1. Pain-free plans never survive. Here's the truth. You didn't fail because you lacked motivation. You failed because you built a plan that felt good, instead of one that actually works. Be honest. You wrote a perfect little routine in a notebook that your real-life self never had the energy to follow. You planned clean meals, daily workouts, cold showers, reading, meditation, deep work. It looked unstoppable on paper. You even posted it like you'd already achieved it. But then, the first day hit. You woke up tired, got interrupted, felt resistance, and your discipline collapsed under something as basic as a group text. Why? Because your plan had zero friction tolerance. You built a blueprint for your best-case self and then handed it to your real, distracted, emotionally exhausted self and expected it to execute like a robot. But here's what no one tells you. If your plan only works on your best days, it's a fantasy. If it breaks the second you feel stressed, bored, tired, or annoyed, it's not a plan. It's a performance. You didn't design your system for discomfort. You designed it to feel motivating. And once that wore off, so did your progress. I used to do this every year. Make a plan that looked inspiring, color-coded, balanced, thoughtful. And 2 days later, I was back on the floor wondering why I couldn't stay consistent. But the truth was simple. I didn't build a system for who I was. I built a fantasy for who I wished I'd wake up as. And that's the mistake. We think structure should feel good. But real structure is uncomfortable by design. It doesn't coddle your mood. It holds you when you want to quit. It doesn't ask how you feel. It just runs. And until you build that, every plan will die the second life punches back. But even if you fix the structure, most people still fail. Why? Because they drag their old identity into a new strategy and expect something to change. That's what we kill next. Chapter 2. The identity you forgot to replace. Here's what no one tells you. You can't build a new life while clinging to the same identity that destroyed the last one. And yet, that's exactly what you tried. You made new goals, started a new habit tracker, downloaded Notion, watched every Reset Your Life video like it was a sermon. But you skipped the only part that actually matters. You never stopped being the person who avoids the work. You still make decisions like your old self. You still cope like your old self. You still run from discomfort like the version of you that kept quitting. But now you're doing it in cleaner aesthetics, with more self-awareness and better lighting. Congrats. You've become a more sophisticated version of who you swore you'd stop being. You didn't change. You just added productivity language to your avoidance. And it worked. For a while. You felt sharper, more aligned, more self-aware. But the results? Still flat, still fragile, still temporary. Because here's the painful truth. No system can save you if you're still operating with an identity that avoids responsibility. You don't need a new routine. You need to become the kind of person who doesn't flinch when it's boring, inconvenient, or hard. And you can't do that if your core identity still flinches at friction and calls it self-compassion. I learned this the hard way. I kept wondering why I couldn't sustain discipline, why everything worked until it didn't. And then I realized every time things got hard, I gave myself permission to collapse. Because deep down, I still believed I was someone who couldn't handle pressure. So the identity won. Not the plan, not the goal, the default self-image. Until that changed, nothing else could. And most people never fix this because they think changing identity is dramatic. It's not. It's just telling the truth about who you're becoming and refusing to let your emotions vote anymore. But even if you update your identity, even if you finally show up consistently, you're still going to fail. Because most people build their discipline on something that betrays them constantly, their mood. Let's fix that next. Chapter 3. When your mood owns your discipline. Let me ask you something. How often have you said, I just didn't feel like it today? Sounds harmless normal. Even honest, right? But here's the problem. If your consistency depends on your mood, you don't have discipline. You have good days and hope. That's why your goals collapse the second life stops feeling aligned. You meditate when it feels peaceful. You work out when you're already hyped. You eat clean when it's convenient. You journal when the vibes are good. You plan when planning feels productive. But when it doesn't, silence, slack, scroll, repeat. That's not a routine. That's emotional roulette. You've built a life where your best self only shows up when your feelings say it's safe. And then you wonder why nothing sticks. Why you always start strong and fade. Why everything that feels clear on Monday flatlines by Thursday. Because discipline never had a chance. You gave your mood full custody of your future, and now you're surprised when it ghosts you. I've lived this exact loop, built a plan, crushed it for a week, then had a bad sleep, bad call, bad thought, boom. Whole system collapses. Not because the plan didn't work, but because I trained myself to wait for permission from how I felt. If I was tired, I skipped it. If I was anxious, I escaped it. If I was off, I forgave myself instantly and repeated the cycle. That's not emotional intelligence. That's just avoidance in a hoodie. Discipline is what you do when you don't feel like it. It's boring, quiet, mechanical, and that's why it works. Because when its system is greater than state, you move. But when its mood is greater than mission, you don't. And here's the worst part. You probably felt proud of yourself for listening to your emotions. You thought it was growth. You told yourself you were being gentle. But you weren't healing. You were just protecting your comfort and calling it boundaries. And that pattern, it doesn't just delay progress. It guarantees your collapse. Because here's what happens next. You finally get the nerve to go all in. Fresh restart, clean slate, high energy. Then by day 3, you're out, and you blame everything except the system that let your feelings lead. That's the next trap. Chapter 4. The 72-hour collapse. Here's the pattern. You reset, you commit. You tell yourself, this time, for real. Day 1, you're focused, disciplined. You even film it. Day 2, still on track. A little tired, but locked in. Day 3, gone. You miss one habit, just one. Then your brain says, we've already broken the streak, might as well restart next week. So you fall off. Not dramatically, not loud, just silently. You don't tell anyone. You don't process it. You just ghost your own goals and pretend you're reworking the plan. And here's the cold part. You didn't fail because the system was wrong. You failed because you still collapsed the second things stopped feeling perfect. 3 days. That's all it takes for most people to fold. Not because they're weak, but because they've never trained themselves to push through a dip without hitting reset. Your brain's addicted to fresh starts, to dopamine, to control. But the moment life gets messy, when a schedule breaks, when your mood shifts, when energy drops, your entire identity panics. If it's not perfect, it's ruined. So you burn the whole thing down instead of letting it be messy and still in motion. That's the lie. You think if day 3 doesn't look like day 1, the progress didn't count. So you wipe the slate. Tell yourself you'll come back stronger, and pretend like starting over is the same as staying in it. It's not. You're not resetting. You're just making quitting look clean. I've done this for years. Had the same goal 11 times. Each time I'd make it 3 days in, then collapse with a slightly different excuse and a slightly more aesthetic plan. But the truth? I didn't have a discipline problem. I had a durability problem. I couldn't let things feel off without blowing it up. And that mindset kills every good habit before it has a chance to survive discomfort. If you're stuck in that loop, if day 3 keeps breaking you, it's not about motivation anymore. It's about capacity and clarity. Because if you can't ride the wave when things get blurry, you'll always lose the moment life stops cooperating. Chapter 5. The myth of ready. Let's get real. You didn't fail because the goal was too big. You failed because you kept waiting for the perfect emotional window to begin. You called it alignment. You told yourself, when I feel clear, I'll move. But that feeling never came, so neither did the progress. Readiness isn't a green light. It's a trap dressed up as wisdom. And the truth is, most of what you call waiting is just fear in better clothes. Fear of not doing it right. Fear of judgment. Fear of wasting effort. So you stall. You plan again. You call it restarting with more intention. But deep down, you know, you're not building clarity. You're protecting comfort. I used to do the same. Delayed the launch, delayed the move, delayed the version of me that didn't need anyone's permission to go. And here's what I learned. You don't build a new life by getting ready. You build it by moving while unsure, scared, and slightly underqualified. Because readiness won't save you. Only momentum will. But if all of this landed, if you finally see why the reset always fails, there's still one piece left that you probably never looked at. Not your habits, not your system, but your money. Because how you handle discomfort? It's the same way you handle your finances. You don't invest, you escape. You wait until it feels safe, then wonder why nothing grows. If you're ready to end that too, that's what comes next. Watch. Why ignoring this simple trick will keep you broke. It's not a hack. It's the one move that turns temporary wins into real freedom.